Welcome to our second webinar in the series, What to Expect from Your ERP System. I'm Ruthie Sloan, Marketing Specialist for Revolution Group, and I'll be your host for our discussion today on inventory control. I have a few housekeeping items. We will be recording this session to post on our website, so if you would like to revisit it or share today's information, we will send the link out for you to do that. At the end, we will have a Q&A session, so please feel free to submit questions through the presentation. Just type them in the control panel on your screen there. We'll do our best to get to all those questions at the end. We do have a large group today. Thank you all very much for joining us. I'm pleased to welcome Revolution Group consultant Chris Blackwell, Mark Williams of Newman Technologies, and Bill Solar with Supplier Six Sigma as they discuss the power of inventory control. For those of you who don't know us, Revolution Group is a Central Ohio-based technology solutions provider founded in 1995. Our partnerships with Plex, Salesforce, Adaptive Planning, and Microsoft allow us the expertise and resources necessary to facilitate our customers' growth. We have been extremely successful in helping our customers leverage technology to revolutionize their supply chains and improve their business's competitiveness. On our staff, we are privileged to have ERP implementation specialists and custom developers with years of manufacturing and supply chain experience. Chris Blackwell is one of those people. His manufacturing and Plex expertise help our customers achieve superior results from their Plex systems. Mark Williams is Senior Staff Engineer for Newman Technologies and has been with the company for 26 years, managing multiple areas from IT to purchasing. As project manager for Newman's Plex ERP system, he managed the setup, implementation, and training on the new system. Bill Solar is principal and master black belt with Supplier Six Sigma. He has over 25 years of experience with Lean Six Sigma, quality engineering, and supply chain management. Supplier Six Sigma specializes in continuous improvement, operations management, Lean Six Sigma problem solving, quality management, and supply chain management. It is now my pleasure to introduce Bill Solar.
Thank you, Ruthie. Happy to be here today. Inventory is the root of all evil, as one of my previous managers used to say. You know, I like that analogy. If you look at the 8 wastes as outlined in the Lean teachings, inventory is one of the larger wastes. Excess inventory causes all kinds of bad things. You have to move it, count it, you have to have a space for it. Customer sends a change order, you might have to scrap or rework it. Also, there's a high chance that the inventory may get damaged and have to be scrapped. I know one company which has so much inventory, they're constantly moving it from one location to another to consolidate it. Imagine how much time and money is wasted. Another problem is that the inventory must be constantly counted to make sure that it matches the count in the accounting system. Many companies spend days counting and reconciling the numbers. The counts might be correct when they are done, but they had to spend hundreds of hours finding it. How many companies do you know that shut down an entire facility and assign everyone to a stock location account? These are people who have no idea what they're counting and also may not know if it's even the right part. Human inspection is only about 80% accurate. So what confidence do we have that we have the right number when we're done counting everything? Some parts that we counted as the correct number in stock locations are actually wrong, and some that we counted wrong were actually correct. We're actually adding in more variation than when we started. All inventory counting is a form of waste and is non-value added. If you had better control of the transactions, had less inventory, you wouldn't even need to count it. So imagine a savings. Excessive inventory is caused by many factors. One of them is due to the buying practices. The buyer may procure a large quantity of parts because they got a good deal on the volume, not realizing the amount of total cost of that purchase. Also, buyers will have to procure extra parts because of poor yields at a factory. If we're constantly scrapping 20% of what we make, we need to buy extra to make up for it. This is all waste. So how much capital is tied up in this inventory? This is all cash that cannot be used for other things like raises, hiring more people, buying new and better equipment, or even expanding the business. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Chris Blackwell, who is an ERP consultant.
Thanks, Bill. Now let's talk about how your ERP system should address those issues that Bill spoke of and the resulting benefits. I'd like to talk about two main pillars of inventory, real-time inventory data being one. As you're aware that of ERP systems today are far more interconnected across functional areas compared to 20 years ago. Organizations are expected to react immediately to changes in demand, which requires sales, production, and procurement to react at the same time to the same information. This easily obsoletes any batch inventory processing. So you should expect to realize one of the biggest benefits of an ERP system, which is the visibility into real-time data. Material, inventory movements, and depletions should happen real-time versus batched and processed later. To effectively execute real-time inventory transactions, you want to make sure the ERP system is accessible and easy to use for every associate that touches your inventory. Your goal is to record what happens, when it happens, and where it happens. Next, let's talk a little bit about serialized inventory and its importance. Your ERP system should provide you with the tools and mechanisms to create and maintain traceable inventory and to mitigate risk. All of you may be aware of the recent recall, the largest recall in automotive history with Takata. Your ERP system should facilitate the identification and tracking of all materials by lot number, batch number, heat number, etc., from receipt through production and finally to shipping, and that should also move backwards. So you should be able to trace finished goods back through its components to identify any issues that might be there. Serialization is the backbone to inventory accuracy. When the organization is working with smaller units of inventory, serialized units, for example, process issues are in the spotlight much quicker with concrete data for root cause analysis. Serialization alone, though, does not solve inventory accuracy issues, but provides the platform for effective process improvement and analysis. Our customers, such as Newman Technology, are experiencing the following improvements as a result of real-time inventory, increased inventory accuracy, and serialization. They've experienced improved planning and decision-making ability. Real-time data makes for better decisions, like what jobs to plan and to start, what POs to expedite or delay. You can also expect increases in efficiency and productivity. With real-time accurate data, your production personnel can focus on production issues instead of looking for parts. Serialized inventory ensures the right parts are used, resulting in less waste. And with the right parts at the right time, downtime due to material shortages are reduced or eliminated. You can also expect improved customer service and satisfaction. Again, real-time data enables your CSRs the ability to provide legitimate order delivery dates. Additionally, and most importantly, accurate inventory leads to on-time customer shipments. And lastly, accurate inventory valuation. Most organizations can tell you with a good level of certainty how much inventory in raw and finished goods they are carrying. But most struggle with what I call WIB, what's in between, aka WIP. A good ERP system will track and value WIP, providing the finance group with solid financial data. Now, let's hear from Mark regarding his experiences with inventory control issues and how Plex helped him to address them.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to try to give you a little practical, high-level exposure to how we implemented Plex and how we used Revolution Group in the implementation process. We are a company that has 3 plants, one in Mansfield, Ohio, one in Aiken, South Carolina, and a new one that's about 2 years old in Albertville, Alabama. We employ about 1,050 people, and we have 3 IT people that cover all 3 plants and all activities within the IT world. We receive about 2,000 containers of parts a day from multiple suppliers, and we ship approximately 125 trucks out of our Ohio plant. They go to Indiana, Ohio, Alabama, and Canada, and overseas as well. So we have a lot of movement of product in and out of the building. When we started, or years ago, before Plex, we had an inventory system that ran on an AS400 Mapix, and we used Future 3 for our EDI. And because we didn't use the system as well as we should have, and the system didn't offer us the things that we needed, we had a lot of inventory inaccuracies. This slide kind of is a little bit backward. The accuracy of the inventory caused all the outlying problems, such as manufacturing downtime. We had to keep extra inventory on hand to make sure we didn't have very much downtime, but we didn't know where it was. We have 3 buildings here in Mansfield, and it could be in all 3. We thought we would store it in certain areas, but sometimes people move it without telling other people, and therefore you're missing some inventory. Logistics inefficiencies resulted in expedites because we didn't know where our inventory was, or we asked for too many parts, and therefore our docks were full waiting on loading. So it was a big issue for us at that point in time. The other thing that it causes is manufacturing space. We built a 100,000 square foot facility just for warehousing because we didn't know where everything was at all times. In the main plant, we even used probably 30,000 square feet for moving a product from the warehouse to there for staging area. If we had an accurate inventory, I'm sure, and you'll see a little bit later, we were able to reduce a lot of that space and now have more manufacturing area. Supplier control and QC was a big problem. Supplier control, we were sending them monthly spreadsheets with their orders on them, and because we didn't know where our inventory was currently, we would inevitably call them for more parts when we didn't need them. So those releases and orders that we sent them on a spreadsheet once a month were changing daily. Production scheduling was done with spreadsheets in the morning every day. The supervisor would go out on the floor, check their completed part inventory, check their child part inventory that they could see that they may have hidden as a result, and then look at the customer releases for that day and see what they needed to make. So approximately 50 to 75% of their day was figuring out what they needed to run. And because we didn't have a very good handle on our inventory, we had a lot more parts than we needed. Therefore, the cash flow was being tied up on the inventory itself. Other problems that we had, we were a batch inventory system. We did a physical inventory twice a year. Took about 2 days each time, and probably 150 people working 2 days just to count all the inventory. Once we got the inventory into the Mapix system and we started running production, it was only hours later that we would start seeing negative inventories crop up because we didn't maybe count something properly and use more than what was in there, thus giving us a negative inventory. Our inaccuracies were as a result of too much and not enough inventory, so we expected to have so much at any one point in time, and sometimes because we couldn't find it or it wasn't readily available, we had to order more. Purchasing was a guesswork. We would look at our customer releases, order that number, plus another 25% just to make sure we had enough here at all time to reduce those downtime situations. Suppliers would get daily updates, multiple daily updates to the orders that we had sent out at the beginning of the month. Work centers or the line would go down because the parts weren't ready for them because they were across the street, didn't communicate timely, or we couldn't find the parts. And as a result of downtime, obviously we didn't get some of our finished product built in time, and that caused some shipping delays. So expediting was a big problem. As I said earlier, production scheduling cost about 75% of the supervisor's time every day. We had a small group of people that knew our MAPICs, basically our accounting people, and shipping used Future 3, and our purchasing people used MAPICs. No one else basically touched the software. We used many spreadsheets for scheduling and production performance, performed visual cycle counting without doing any tracking on the MAPIC system. So like I said earlier, they would start the day, go do a visual cycle count, and then figure out what they needed to do. The quality group, they stored all their SBC data, quality checks in binders, and would have to go searching through weekly, monthly, quarterly binders to find the information if they needed it. The Plex solution, the first plant we implemented was in Mansfield. Our South Carolina plant kind of went on their own. Basically took about the same amount of time as our Mansfield plant, but we were 7, 8 times bigger than they were. So we used a process approach, or phased approach, I'm sorry, starting with customer shipping, accounting, purchasing, and then merged in the inventory control. What that allowed us to do was get the invoices out, get the payments in, and purchase our materials that we needed, and that flowed through very well. Now obviously the customer shipping was required for our customer. We replaced our AS400 system and the MAPICs and Future 3 with the Plex solution. We used a champion-based approach, which in my mind was the key to our success. We had functional experts, maybe not even the department manager, but key people in their areas that we used to train on their area of use in the Plex system. So for instance, in our shipping group, we had a team leader in there that learned how to set up mailboxes, how to manage the EDI process and functions, and they were our shipping expert. We had an accounting person who became our accounting expert. So each one of those champions we trained, and then they trained the individuals in their areas. 2 years ago, as a result of how we learned the things we learned in our implementation, we were able to start up a new plant within 6 months on Plex. So from the day they started bringing parts in, we had the system up and running within six months. Every module that we use in Ohio, they use in Alabama. We are now doing virtualized desktops out on the shop floor. We don't need to have a standalone computer running everything, because all we need is the web. So we use a virtualized desktop through a server-based approach that allows us to move work centers around or equipment around when the production floor changes. And lastly, the community approach. The Plex community is wonderful for finding out solutions to problems versus going to Plex to spend money on finding some of those problems. And in the Honda supply group, the suppliers that have Plex, we are constantly emailing each other, talking, calling, to see how others do things. I've spent a lot of time in the audit section within Plex, and quite a few of the Honda suppliers that use Plex have called me to help set up their auditing process for their ISO systems. So we trade ideas, we collaboratively use development time together to reduce cost. So that group has helped everyone immensely. We meet once a year with setting up speakers. Revolution handles that very well for us, and it's a good way to exchange some information. The project team that we to implement Plex here at Newman we had an internal Plex lead, was basically the salesperson at Plex. Going clockwise is our functional champions that I mentioned earlier. Every department that had modules to use within Plexus, we had champions in those areas. Revolution had a project leader for us that managed our project, helped us in the setup of the system, and then further on they had other people that they would send up that would help us with certain modules that they had expertise on. The plant champion for Plex was myself, and I managed both the Plex environment, the Revolution group connection, as well as all of our Plex champions. And then we had a Plex project manager that if we needed anything fixed or certain other training aspects, I could call on that person at Plex to help us. Just to give you a little of the results that we saw from our old system to our new system, the inventory accuracy, as you can see on the right, the last physical that we performed before we switched to Plex, our physical inventory on that day was a little over $17 million. After we put Plex in and got it squared away, and we had to do some, change of thinking in how we process everything around here at Newman, we are now down in the $9 million range. So that cash flow has allowed us to do a lot more things, such as buy more machinery, better machinery, new technology, give out raises, bonuses, those kinds of things. So just getting that inventory accuracy down to where we could do a lot more just-in-time delivery from our suppliers freed up cash, not to mention floor space, which I'll talk to in a minute. We also were able to reduce, as you can see on the graph to the right, our purchasing resources. We had 5 buyers before we implemented Plex. We have 2 today. We have about 85 suppliers, and you saw that we bring in about 2,000 containers a day in here. There's a lot of decision making that has to be done, but it's all done now through MRP in the Plex system. We no longer order based on customer releases. Our production people now schedule their jobs based on customer releases. Those jobs drive the supplier requirements for when they need those parts. So if I'm creating a job for Friday and I want the parts in here the day before, that is reflected automatically through MRP. It runs twice a day for us, so if our customer changes any requirements, our production people can go in and change a job if they see it, and then our suppliers will see that very quickly thereafter through their supplier portal. We've increased our labeling compliance with Honda. We used to have quite a few label issues. Now we have very few, and we're even taking that further with enhancing our PLC integration using a third-party software partner with Plex called Coors Engineering. And as you can see, we reduced some key people in the areas, purchasing, we reduced some shipping people. Those kinds of things have allowed us to save, as well as manufacturing space. In the production control, our inventory now is about 98% accurate at any one point in time. You can see in the graph that we had about 300 hours per month on average of downtime because the parts weren't ready to be used at the line. Now we average less than 10 hours a month, so that is a productivity improvement that our production people really like. Cycle count has reduced because we're a lot more accurate. We reduced the location size down to a situation where if we do need to do a cycle count, we can do it in 5 to 10 minutes. So key there is not to have a huge location to cycle count, but many small locations. Again, downtime was reduced dramatically. Also in the downtime, which is separate from that 300, is changeover. If we had a line that ran 3 different completed parts for the customer and we were out of parts, we would change over to another completed part that we had parts for. Now that is scheduled and we don't do that anymore because we have the proper inventory. Physical inventory, I told you, it took about 150 people 2 days to do. We now do with about 50 people in 4 hours. So again, a huge increase in our proficiency and efficiency. And that's about all I have right now.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all 3 of our presenters today for being with us. We're going to take questions now. If anyone has questions, please feel free to submit those. Looks like we have a couple for you, Mark. You had mentioned briefly, you had your project team there. How did they do the project implementation in the other plants?
In our South Carolina plant, they wanted to do their own thing. So they hired an outside consultant, one person, who then had to learn the Plex system. And it took them, that person, many, many months to even get a feel for what was needed. Went to several Plex seminars, and we spent a lot of cash with Plex just in training of him. And he lasted about 1.5 years, and then he was gone. So we took over at that point and got them up a lot quicker than what they were running. The Alabama plant, we just basically copied all the tables, all the processes into their system. The only thing that changed were part numbers. We were able to use the same general ledger accounting processes, so it went real smooth and real quick. And they also had a couple key people that came from Ohio that knew the system, knew the production environment, and they were able to get them moving in the right direction very quickly.
Excellent, thank you. Question for Bill. So, there are obviously a lot of manufacturing facilities that are still in the situation that Newman was before they implemented Plex. And that can be sort of an overwhelming position to be in when you're sort of starting out the ERP process. What would you say are some of the first key things that a facility should do, or somebody who's looking into ERP should do?
Well, as far as you mean as implementing the inventory control system,
yes,
that kind of thing?
Yep.
Well, definitely need to understand kind of where you stand, what your issues are. There's a lot of good tools you could use too, like cause effect diagrams, just to understand what the issues you're having. Is it buying practices? Is it inventory management? Is it cycle counting? Is it keeping track of parts? Is it scrap? Just have a kind of a basic idea of kind of where your problems are, so you kind of know what your ERP system needs to address.
Excellent, excellent. Chris, Mark talked a little bit about Revolution Group. What was our involvement with them? Were we there on site? How involved were we with them in the process?
Yes, I mean, our methodology is to support our customers with Plex training, which consists of configuring the system in conjunction with understanding their business processes. So we're with them through that entire process. And then we are with them through what we call a readiness phase, where we help them and assist them with data migration, getting old part numbers and new into the system, all the information that needs to be up and running in an ERP system. And then we're there to support them on a go live, because as we know, any implementation has some kind of bugs and things like that. So we're there to support them through that phase. And after Plex is up and running relatively smoothly, we then transition into what we call the support phase, where at any time our customers, and Mark and Newman do this occasionally, they'll call us for support on issues that arise, new module functionality that they want to implement and things like that. So that's how we do it.
Excellent. Mark, I have another question for you.
Sure.
Did you have to overcome any cultural changes or resistance when you did the implementation?
Yes, many. Our production team had a real difficult time trusting the inventory accuracy so that they could schedule their production. If I had anything to do over, I would get our Japanese, we're a Japanese transplant company, I would get them more involved day one, because when one of the young, aggressive Japanese people we had started playing around in the production scheduling, he was trusting the inventory that we had enhanced and made it very accurate. He was trusting that and playing around with the production scheduling. He moved our production group into the direction that they're running now, and requiring them to use Plex to do their production scheduling. So now, I kind of mentioned earlier that it was about 75% of the production supervisor's time was spent doing production scheduling. Now it's probably around 1 day a week, maybe 2 hours max. So they're down to what they should be doing, and that's managing their people, managing their environment, instead of managing their inventory and managing their production jobs. So the cultural change was hard for them to understand and learn, because they would never trust the inventory before, and to get them to understand that the inventory is now accurate, just look it up, you'll see where it's located, you can call somebody to go get it, and it's there for you. Once they found that, that changed. And then the other thing that was really hard for our people to do was they would just move product all over wherever they wanted. Now they had to use a scan gun, and the process is you touch the container with a forklift, you scan it, and you scan the movement of that container. And that was hard for them to do, and they didn't understand the concept of what would happen if you didn't do that process. So it took us a little while, and but once they made some mistakes and we were able to point out why those things happen, then they fully understood. And it took a couple months, I would say, of making some mistakes along the way. So that culture was hard. Then in the other areas, the support areas like maintenance, tooling, QC, it was a matter of just saying, hey, look what you can do here. You'll know this information without having to go through all tons of paperwork. It's right there for you. So those were the biggest changes for us.
I have one more question for Mark. What was the tipping point for Newman in seeking an ERP solution?
Probably the downtime issues that we were having, and having to build a 100,000 square foot warehouse. All that costs a lot of money, and we said, we know we can be better at this. We know we can do better. We know we can save money. So we said we have to start using a system that's serialized. Ours wasn't, obviously, that we can trace and know where parts are. So the biggest reason we changed was inventory. Our accounting system was working fine before. Our production system was working, just not efficiently. Everything else was working, but inventory was the big driver. And we projected maybe $1 million of that 18 million that we could improve. We had no idea that we could improve it as much as we did. So the benefit just was overwhelming with the decision we made.
Great, thank you. Well, that looks like all of our questions. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. If you have any further questions or would like to discuss how we can help with your ERP needs, please don't hesitate to contact us here at Revolution Group. Don't forget, we will be posting the webinar on our website if you need to reference it again. And be sure to sign up for the rest of the webinars in the series, What to Expect from Your ERP System. Thank you again, Chris, Bill, and Mark, for being part of our presentation, and have a great day, everyone.